Hello, and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. I'm your host, I'm Rosie Gill-Moss. Joining me today, I've got Karla Hawkins. Hi Karla, welcome to the show.
Hi Rosie.
We had a few tech issues, didn't we? We were going to try and do it in sign language, or mime. We thought that might work at one point.
Yeah, we could have tried it.
But we made it. So Karla is joining me from London, and again, I know very little about your story. I will say, and I'm going to say this right at the beginning, your husband sounds like a bit of an overachiever.
He was. Very much.
Yeah, we'll get to this, guys. I know a little bit more than you, but I'm going to let Karla tell you. What I do know is that his name was Dan, and he was diagnosed really young at 31 with a very rare bladder cancer.
That's right.
So we know this is going to be a tough one, because they always are. But Karla, when you're ready, tell me a little bit about Dan. Tell me how you met. Let's start there.
Yep, cool. Well, I was actually, so we met at work. I met him years ago, actually, when he first joined our law. I work in a law firm, and he joined very briefly. So I saw him in a doorway and I thought, oh my God, look at him. I just straight away I was like smitten.
That's so weird, because that's how I met Ben. Like I went,
really?
I walked past him on a job interview, not at a law firm, and we did that real cartoon, where you look back across your shoulder, and we didn't get together. Sorry, I've totally hijacked you, but I just love that bit of the intro.
I know. I think it's just so lovely when you actually look at each
real
other,
life connection, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was the last time I saw him, and for about probably 5 years. And then, so he had left the firm and he came back 5 years later. And I happened to be in his quiz team. We had a social quiz team in the office, and he was in my team, and I had no idea his name or anything. And I'd said to my friends, I was like, "Who's this Dan Hawkins?" And I was seeing someone else. I just started seeing someone, just dating casually. And he joined the team, and it was him. And I was like, "Oh my God, it can't be." And we just kicked it off straight away on that night. And I was seeing this guy, and I felt really guilty because I had these kind of weird feelings. So I left it. And then he messaged me at work. We have like an internal messaging thing. And he was just joking around. Like there was no sort of asking me out or anything. But eventually he just said, "Do you want to go for a drink?"
And there you go.
Yeah.
I was actually in a relationship when I met Ben as well. I know. And I also felt very bad. And then I kind of figured, well, we ended up married, so it was obviously the right thing. Some might say the universe had the last laugh on that one.
Exactly. We got our comeuppance, I guess.
So you guys have met. Was this in London? Because for my listeners, that lovely accent is a New Zealand accent,
yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and was he Brit?
Yeah, he was British. So I've been here for 17 years, and I still haven't lost the accent. So still here. But yes, he was born in Wiltshire.
Mm-hmm. So you've met each other. I'm presuming you fell madly in love. You lived that wonderful hedonistic life that we do when we don't have children or responsibilities or a cancer diagnosis in our life.
Yeah. For the first sort of 12, I think it was even actually only 9 months. It was a whirlwind. So he was living down the road from me in Brixton. And anyway, he had to move out of his flat. So sort of a month into our sort of seeing each other, he moved in with me.
Wow.
So I know.
When you know, right?
Yeah. It was straight away. Actually, sorry, it was more than a year. So we had a year of sort of excitement, and we went to New York and we did all these things together and went to weddings and things. And it was so straight away, he was sort of my best friend. Like I knew straight away, and he was so funny. And he moved jobs, so he wasn't at my firm anymore. So life was great. Perfect.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And then the following year, obviously, so sort of around, I don't know, March, he sort of said to me he'd been peeing blood. And I said to him, I'm like, you need to go to the doctor, because I'll go to the doctor at the drop of a hat. I'll just go to the doctor for anything. And he was very averse to going to the doctor, typical man.
Not the first time I've heard this.
No, exactly. So he was like, I've been going to the gym, it's lifting weights. So I've read about it, it's fine. It's, and I was like, okay, but I really want you to go. But anyway, so we left it for a few months. We went to Italy on holiday. We had a great time, came back in September, and it happened again. So we were out for a lunch with his mum. She was in town from Bristol, and we basically both bullied him into going to the doctor.
If in doubt, get the mum on board.
Exactly. So the doctor obviously said, this is not normal. We'll send you for some tests. Well, no, we'll send you to a consultant. So he went to a urologist. I didn't go. I was working, I was online, and I thought there's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And I kind of regret this every single day of my life.
I know, but who goes to their husband's doctor's appointments? Not at this point. I'm guessing at this point you weren't even thinking of anything serious. I'd be thinking kidney infection or something at this point.
Yeah. He was super healthy, so I had no worries. And then I get a call, and I've never heard Dan cry, and he was crying on the phone. And he had been told that he had stage 4 bladder cancer, very, very rare, and it was massive.
Shit. So this happened at the first appointment. There's been no tests done.
So basically they were at the urologist. They were just concerned. They wanted to do a scan, I think because they had all the equipment there. It was through our healthcare, which is good, like corporate healthcare. Yeah. So we were quick. And he told me that this person who was scanning him went white as a sheet and left the room, and then came back in with the urologist, and the urologist then took him to the consulting room. So it was straight away he found out on his own. Okay,
now I get why you feel bad you didn't go, but hindsight, you didn't know, right?
No, but it's still,
Yeah.
So I was just like, obviously I said, get home, we'll sort this out, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never faced anything like this in my life.
And he was 31, wasn't he, at this point? How old were you?
I'm 10 years older than Dan. So I was 40.
You cougar.
Yeah, I know. He was 30. I lose track of, ever since he died, like my brain is just,
a widow brain, right?
Yeah. So anyway, 10 years older. I had no idea he was that young. And obviously we just hit it off straight away, and it just worked. So I thought, men can do it, women can do it too.
Yeah, damn right.
But so he was only 31 when he got that diagnosis.
So young.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about bladder cancer, but was that the only sign he'd had?
Yeah, that was the only. Well, I say the only sign. We'd gone on holiday, and he had to he was drinking Gaviscon by the cupful. So I think it was really affecting his stomach and bowels, and he thought he had IBS. He'd been diagnosed with IBS a few years back, and I think it was the beginning of the tumor. Yeah. So by the GP.
Yeah, so sometimes things like that, they can really mask it, can't they? And again, at 31, your brain, our brains do now, but back then your brain wouldn't automatically say, oh, it's probably cancer.
No.
And stage 4 it's not great, is it?
No. But I didn't tell him that, and he didn't want to know. So, I did it straight away, Googling everything I could. And it was bad news, but he didn't want to know. He didn't want to know anything about his cancer. He never looked it up the whole time he had it. Wow. I was the one who did all the research and kind of knew what was going on, and told his family as much as I thought that he'd want me to tell them.
We talk people having to kind of become oncologists very quickly when they receive a cancer diagnosis. And when you're cancer adjacent, which is a weird term, but, when you're supporting somebody through a cancer diagnosis, you want to find out, or some people want to find out all the evidence and all the information. But I'm thinking that, and I'm not speaking ill of the dead here at all, because Christ knows how any of us would react, but you're having to carry quite a lot of weight here, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at this point, you've come home from the hospital. He's come home from the hospital. He's obviously this devastating news. Mm-hmm. You're Googling frantically, presumably thinking, is this surely it's curable. There's got to be options out here.
He's 31.
And what were you finding?
I was finding 1 out of, 5 people live up to 5, stuff like that, 5 years, 5 years, if not. And it was sort of, we hadn't had the second scan yet, so we didn't know the extent of which it had spread. So at that stage, I was like, we're okay. If it's just in the bladder, we're okay. But it had grown outside the bladder. So that's what we found out on the second scan. And that's when I started to to feel concerned about what that meant for us.
So was that it's a spreading? Look at me pretending like I know all these terms, but were
I
they
don't
talking
know.
secondary cancers, or it's a spreading of the same?
It was the same cancer. So it had grown out of his bladder wall. And that is really bad news, because that means it's kind of moving to the lymph nodes, which then could mean it would spread. Yeah.
Gosh, poor guy. So talk me through this bit. So you've now had the second scan. How's Dan? Is he kind of mentally with this?
Not good. I mean, we've been told that he needs to have either a full bladder taken out, his bladder completely removed, or a bladder, at the best case scenario, a bladder reconstruction. So using his bowel to reconstruct, making a neobladder. So so basically, and he had to have an operation within that week. So he had like a week to get his head around the fact that he might.
I think is appropriate, actually.
So he had a week, and he was told he'd have to wake up every 2 hours to empty his bladder. So when he was sleeping, he'd have to, and I had insomnia at that generally, but so it was quite worrying. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to cope with this? Like him having to set an alarm.
And was that going to be a long-term thing? I mean, I know we're talking in terms of a terminal cancer here, but it wasn't sort of a 6-week period where he'd have to wake every 2 hours. This was going to be kind of. It
was for the first, so we hadn't been told it was terminal at that stage. So we were told sort of if the bladder needed time to, if they were going to rebuild his bladder, it would need time to expand. So it wouldn't be, for us, it wouldn't be a long-term thing. It'd probably be a couple of years. We just had to keep an eye on it. And he also had to use a catheter to drain it every week. So self-catheterize to drain, to make sure everything is draining out of that once he would have that new bladder.
And this is all kind of dehumanizing a lot of this stuff anyway. And I'm thinking a young man in his prime, this is real kind of old man territory, right? I'm guessing there's pads and all sorts involved in his life all of a sudden.
Yeah, and he was a real lad as well, which made it even worse.
And did he talk to people about how he was feeling, or was he more closed off? Yeah, I'm sort of hearing that kind of strong stoic type from him.
Yeah, very much so. Didn't talk about that sort of thing at all, and just made it all a big joke to his friends.
But he did. Was it during treatment that he passed the bar?
Yeah. So basically, after he'd had his bladder, I
mentioned the overachieving at the beginning. Remember?
So we went into hospital just quickly. We went into hospital. We didn't know whether or not he'd come out of the surgery with a bladder or not a bladder. So we'd have to have a permanent. I can't remember the name of the bag. It's gone from my head.
It's not a colostomy, is it?
It's not colostomy. It's the other. But anyway, we didn't know. So the operation was at 8 p.m. at night. I sat in the waiting room, and it was about 4 or 5 hour operation, and I heard nothing, and we just both didn't know. Like, I don't know how we actually went through that. And then he came to, and the doctor called me and said that they'd managed to create the neobladder. So that was amazing. But Dan, in the meantime, was screaming in pain, and no one was in the recovery room. No one was sort of doing anything.
Could you hear him?
I was they took me down to see him in the recovery room, and he was screaming, and he's not someone who does that. So I was telling everyone off and saying he needs stronger painkillers. He had a epidural, but it obviously hadn't worked. So he was, so it was just that time trying to just get his pain under control. But I was pleased I was there for that.
Somebody in pain.
Yes,
which is somebody else. And I'm written down the word here, limbo, like you sitting in that corridor, or like that kind of purgatory, is it what's going to happen?
Yeah, I was on my own. So it wasn't his family live outside of London. So I was I had plenty of friends say, look, they'll come in, but I just wanted to be on my own.
Some things you want to do by yourself, right? Yeah. So how was he when he came home from hospital? Sorry, I'm poking at you a bit.
It was difficult the first week in, when he'd got back from hospital, because he was in hospital for probably about a month. And then he woke up in the middle of the night, and I could see the shadow from the bedroom, and I was just laying there, and he said, I've got blood in my, so he had a drainage bag. So from his stomach, where they'd kind of gone in to reconstruct his bladder, he had a drainage wound that I had to clean every day. But so it was bleeding into the bag, and both of us were like, what do we do? So yeah, we rang emergency. We got an ambulance come straight away. So yeah, there were lots of things like that. And also the fact that he had to, all the wound dressings, I had to give him blood thinning injections in his stomach every day. So there was a lot going on.
It's becoming a nurse, isn't it? And
Yeah.
were you, because I'm guessing you work in a law firm, so
Yes.
you presumably have quite a high stress or a high commitment level job. And
I'm
were
not
you
a lawyer
able?
for a start. I'm in marketing and business development, but yes, it's a very demanding
Even working
role.
in a law firm, right?
Yeah, you're dealing with lawyers, so yeah.
So how were you able to take time off work at this point?
So that time, no. So I thought for me, it was just a bit, it kept me kind of going. I love my job, and also they were so supportive. So they would say, you can take the time off if you need to, just, log off, etc. So at
That's
that stage, I
refreshing
was
to
still,
hear.
because he was sleeping a lot. So at that stage, no, I didn't.
And what about his work? Were they
They were
helpful
brilliant.
during this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was also at another law firm, so he immediately went on paid sick leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, it's such a relief when you're going through something like this, because the worry about how you're going to pay the bills while you're fighting off cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about adding stress onto something that feeds off stress.
Yeah. But I must say the admin of that was quite a lot.
And we touched a little bit and about Dan and his sort of, kind of not really opening up about it. Were you able to open up about it? Did you find, were you able to talk to people, or did you sort of keep it quite closed as well?
No, I'm a talker, so I would talk to as many people who would listen, but also I immediately was talking to a counsellor.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really proactive, wow.
Yeah.
And what about Dan? I'm sorry, I'm really being nosy here, but would he consider counselling at this point?
So we talked about that. He was just like, I don't think it'll work for me. So he did try it. So he did it for a couple of weeks, sorry. But when you just don't gel with someone, and I think that he hadn't given it. He thought that person was it, and there was no one else. So then he stopped.
I don't like counselling. I was guilty of this myself. No, it's not for me, but I just hadn't found the right one.
No, exactly. So that kind of stopped there.
So what does life look like for the pair of you now? So he's had the reconstructed bladder. He's back home.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the dressing of keeping the wound clean.
Yeah.
But otherwise, what's life like? Where are your minds at this point?
We're just surviving, I think, and we're just sort of. I think there's just a lot of hoping for like we thought, because we were told when he had the operation the cancer's gone.
Oh, okay. So hang on, we missed this bit. So this at this point they're saying the cancer has gone. So
yes,
this is really positive,
the cancer
right?
has been removed. Yeah. They also removed some lymph nodes where they found cancer in. So for at that time, I was like, because I hadn't really delved so much into it, I didn't know that there could be a high chance of reoccurrence. So
all I would have heard is the cancer's gone.
Exactly.
Let's crack open the champagne, right?
Yeah. We were so happy, and he was all ready to go, just ready to start life again after he was healed.
Until
gosh, I think we had about 5 months until we got he had his scans. So we basically had to have scans every 3 months, and that was something else that was just the most terrifying wait time.
Waiting for the scan.
Yeah.
And during this 5 months, though, are you living a life, I guess, sort of temporarily free of the shadow of cancer? Are you sort of almost like, this is it, we can rebuild our lives now,
exactly.
Off we go?
Yeah. We're going on holiday. Well, we didn't actually go on holiday because insurance would stop him from doing certain things. But he was, best man at his best friend's wedding, and he was just back to life, and he was kind of part-time working. So he'd started back working. So then I think it was the second scan, and his doctor, we always knew after this point, we always knew when she was going to give us bad news, because she just had that face where, she'd do her mannerisms. But anyway, we didn't know at that stage. So we went into the room and she said, I'm really sorry, but we've found a couple of spots on the lung. And I was like,
This is the gift that keeps giving, isn't it?
Yeah, yep. And yeah, she's like, we need to take scans. We don't know. It could potentially be something normal. It could be because apparently you can have like sort of strange little clot things in your lungs and things. And so they were like, we just need to do another MRI and CT and things. And so we had to wait for that. And then that came back, and it was confirmed cancer. Secondary bladder cancer. Yep. So then he was rushed again into operation where I think they took a ridiculous amount of his lungs. So I think they took it was 60% or something of his lung capacity. So there was some in both lungs, and they had to remove quite a large portion of his lungs. So that would mean for him, and he was a really sporty guy, did triathlons, etc. So for him, that was another big, massive blow, as well as
even if he was to recover, he was never going to be as like he was.
That's what he thought. Yeah.
Oh, this is so sad. But you're thinking, okay, well, there's still hope, right? There's still some hope. I don't care if he's patched together and stitched up. He might make it.
Yeah.
Talk me through the next bit.
So then we kind of, he had to obviously have a big operation, but it was keyhole, so recovery was quicker. He had to also then go back into chemo. So again, that was he had chemo both times, which was horrible, but I think everyone can appreciate that. But then we were like, okay, so now we just have to wait for every scan every 3 months. We just have to keep going, through this. But we'd be nervous wrecks, absolutely nervous wrecks. I can't explain how horrible it was, but anyway.
Did you get snappy with each other? I can imagine I get snappy and
yes,
100%.
So probably I think it was about 8 months later. Excuse me for not remembering exact dates.
Please.
But he was then called in again for his scan because all throughout this period he'd been trying different drugs. Because there was this cancer is so rare, there are actually no drugs for it. So we did clinical trials, we did everything. And finally, so we had to go back for another scan, and they'd found some in his liver. So it had been removed from the lung, and now it was in the liver.
It's like playing whack-a-mole, right?
God, it's ridiculous. So then he had to have an operation on his liver to remove a portion of his liver that was infected with the cancer. So his doctor at this stage was like, chemo clearly doesn't work. We'll try immunotherapy. And I'd read a lot about it, and I was like, this is it. This one's going to be this is the winner.
One,
yeah. And it wasn't the winner. So we got it on, what's the word? Because it wasn't approved for his type of cancer.
So
but
off-label?
Pardon?
Off-label, would it be?
Yeah, off-label. So the compassionate, that's what, compassionate access. So I was like, this is it. This is going to be it. I know it. I feel it. And then, so I don't know, probably 4 months into him starting to take this new treatment, he was starting to kind of go a really like a yellow shade, like quite yellow. And I was like, and he was just tired all the time, sleeping during the day. I thought it was the drugs because we were told it can actually knock it out of you. And then I was like, so I had to take him to A&E one day because he felt he was going to be sick. He was just really, it was not pleasant. So I should mention at this time, we'd moved out of our flat and we were permanently on the road house sitting.
Oh,
we were actually looking after animals. So we were doing pet sitting and house sitting because we were trying to save up for a mortgage. So we were at someone else's house.
Oh my God.
I know. It was bizarre. And he agreed to do this. I mean, it was really brave of him.
I mean, you gave him a little tour around, presumably. You got to see some different houses.
Exactly. Yeah. And we didn't have to pay any bills, which was brilliant. So he went to A&E, and then they were like, you need, something's up with your liver. The count's really high. And he's like, no, that's just my liver. It's, he called it Homer Simpson disease. So
right.
He had it. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about this, but it does happen to some people. They have like a higher count of something. So he's like, no, I'm just yellow. I'm usually just yellow. But anyway, so he was then referred back to the urologist, who then took more tests again. And then it was so basically I was like, "No, there's nothing wrong. It's this drug's working. I think it's just," we both convinced ourselves that this was just, the drugs and him being tired. So again, he went to the hospital. I had the blood test, and I went to work because it was when we were back after COVID. So I was having to be in the office a little bit more. I was on a phone call, like a conference call, and then suddenly I get a call on my phone from Dan's number. And I'm like, oh, okay. I did tell him to call me when, obviously when he was in the room with the doctor about what's going on. Anyway, his oncologist answered. I answered, and she was like, "I've got Dan's phone. I think you'll need to come to the hospital." And I said, "Oh, okay. Is something?" She's like, "It's very serious." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe just tell me." I was obviously going to go, but I just kind of wanted to know what was going on, because Dan wasn't talking. And she said, "Dan's basically got a week to live." On the phone. Yeah. And I just burst into it was just the worst moment probably of my life. I was at work. I was in front of everyone. And I just left. I just rushed out and got a taxi. The taxi driver was talking to me the whole way. And I had to tell him, I said, "Look, I'm so sorry. Yeah, this has happened. I can't talk." And I got into the hospital, and I walked into the room that Dan was waiting in. He was sitting on his own in a little he'd lost so much weight, and he was a lot smaller than what he was, and just on his own. And I said, how could anyone leave him like that on his own with that news? So then I just went and sat with him, and we were told that was it. He had a week to live. It was
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's made all the hairs go up. And that, just receiving news like that after you've been fighting so hard uphill.
Yeah. And really, we had so much hope. We were just like, wow.
And actually, a lot of my guests, we talk about the moment the hope goes.
Yeah.
Because it's gone.
Yeah.
And that black hole that you stare into without hope is so bleak.
Yes.
And, you have to try and find it again afterwards. But for you guys right then, that must have been the darkest hole you've ever stared into.
Yeah. I mean, and also we had to actually do the admin of getting back to this place we were house sitting in a taxi together, and we were just looking out the window. And
I was thinking the world just going by as normal, right? Why hasn't it stopped?
Yeah. All these people were happy and laughing, and I just felt sick. It was I felt angry. Yeah.
And I'm guessing, I can imagine how Dan took the news, but do you think that he really understood is this? No.
He was so scared. I mean, he was, to hear those words, because she was, she wasn't she was always so lovely and open and on his oncologist, and she was so serious this time. And so I think he did know, but he didn't want to. We basically thought she's like, he could pass away in the night, in a matter of days. So both him and I were actually thinking, and I think, yes, he did realize, because we were both thinking, what if he doesn't wake up the next day and we're at this person's house? And so we were just terrified. And it was just, when you're in shock, and I had to call his mum, I had to call his dad. They were screaming. It was horrible. It was so horrible. Yeah, but I just wanted to keep everything away from him, while he just kind of obviously he just tried to process this devastating news, without having to do all that.
And I suppose all of us kind of wonder, what if we were told that we had a finite time on this planet? What would we do with it? How would we choose to spend that time?
Yeah.
And of course, most people, when you think about it, not factoring in that you might be in a lot of pain, that you might be immobile. How was Dan in this last week? And what did you do? How did you spend your time?
So he's very close to his family. So we went back to Wiltshire, and we his dad and his stepmom had us to stay with them. So that was a godsend, really, because we had our own little room there, so we'd go there occasionally, because we didn't have anywhere to house sit. But they were, just to have other people to actually help was just, and just help me deal. I just burst into tears, but
and I know it sounds like a silly question at this point, but what was his health like? What was he like physically? Was he able to move around? And
yeah, he was 100% able to move around. It was just those last 4 months where he started to get really tired. So he was the biggest eater in the whole entire world. Like right up until he passed away, he was eating. Like I had to go and get him like about 4 different meals a day. Like just he was a huge eater. He loved his food. So he was really, I mean, he was really good. He was walking around. He was going for big long walks with his dad, because we actually had more than a week. We had 3 months.
Oh,
Yeah.
told you he was an overachiever, didn't I?
I know, overachiever and everything.
Give the man a week.
Exactly. I know.
So did you stay there permanently with him during this 3 months? You just relocated down to Wiltshire, and I'm picturing quite an almost idyllic existence for a while, being with family and outside.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of people envisage the kind of end of a terminal illness as being, and in most cases, it is pretty dark and uncomfortable at the very. That's a real understatement. Did he get to a point? I suppose what I'm trying to say is how he went from that to that. Like, was there a sudden deterioration? Was it that his liver just couldn't cope anymore?
So, I mean, it was weird because, yeah, exactly. That's what was my thoughts. He was so healthy. She just said that the body would, because the liver is such an important function for the whole body, because it had also moved into his stomach lining. So it had spread to different places. So it was more that the body was just going to shut down. It couldn't handle the load. So every day for that first sort of week, so in that first week, we got married. So yeah, it was so, I mean, him and I were just unconventional in terms of relationships. Like we didn't feel the need to get married. We hadn't had kids at that stage. He had frozen his sperm and things. So that was kind of,
we're going to circle back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was I saying? Yeah. So, I forgot what I was saying.
Just about the kind of how the sudden deterioration.
So I think for him it wasn't actually his body that was deteriorating. I think it was the loss of perhaps hope at that stage, and he went downhill, and so we had to put him on lorazepam just to kind of keep him, just like above water. But he was physically, you could see a massive change. He was thin, he had, he was yellow, things were changing. And I think that was more so with the mental health side, like, to just know that.
Can't imagine, can you, living? I mean, I guess you have an adjacent, but the idea of being told that your time is up, and like I say, how do you decide what to do with that time? What is the best use of that time? I mean, I'd go into kind of decision paralysis and probably stare at a wall for 3 months. I know.
But that's what he did. He didn't want to do anything. He didn't, and he was such an active person, and he didn't want to go in the car. He was scared of things, anxiety, all of that sort of thing. And also we had doctors coming in daily, sort of to check, and friends. So he'd have he had so many friends, it was ridiculous. Like I don't know how he had kept that many friends.
But how nice, if that's the right word, that there was this time when people could come and see him. And did you have conversations about the end, did you have those deep and meaningful conversations?
We had none of that. And I think that's something I'm still trying to process, because we never, ever discussed it.
Isn't it funny that even staring it in the face like that? Yeah.
But the more he lived, so the longer he lived, so once we got past that week, and then he kept going, I think hope came back.
Bit like we've beaten it. We've won here. Yeah.
He's like, I'm strong. And we all thought, this is weird. Maybe we need to talk to the oncologist. Maybe we need a second opinion. And because he was getting healthier again.
Yeah.
Like he was eating well. He was exercising. So there was hope back again, which is really mean. And so, he was just enjoying seeing his friends, doing stuff, it was still there lurking in the background, but I wanted to talk about it desperately, absolutely desperately. And I talked to, so we had a hospice assigned to us. So we had a nurse come, and I could ring her whenever. And I'd often ring her and say, I'm so scared, she would be the only person I could talk to, because his parents also were the same. They were like, no, he's fine. He's going to beat this, so yeah, it was
real denial. Very British reaction, isn't it? Denial.
Yeah.
I had a question then and it's popped out of my head. How annoying. It was a really good question. I should have written it down.
Was it about the
It's
wedding?
gone.
No.
It was about the wedding. It was
Good.
about the wedding. Well done. Well done. Glad one of us is on the ball. Yeah, talk to me about the wedding. So how did that happen?
So he said to me, and this meant a lot. He said to me, "I'm so sorry I was a dick about marriage," because I mean, I would have taken it all. It's nice to get married. It's nice to get a ring. If he proposed to me, I would have said yes. But he was always like, "I'm not getting." All his friends were getting married and things and having kids, and he's like, "I'm not getting married." So I was just like, I'm easy.
Yeah.
Like I don't. And he's like, so sorry. And I was like, well, why don't we get married? And so basically in the space of like 3 or 4 hours, I'd got us a marriage certificate, the
Because you can get like an emergency one, can't
yes,
you? Yeah,
exactly, compassionate one. And a few of his friends had been up that day, and then they were driving, they were leaving, and I said, we're going to get married. So there were people around, which was great. So we had they were none of mine, unfortunately, but they were all his friends and his family. And we got married in his dad's back garden.
Oh, did you wear a white dress?
No, I had no time.
I was going to say, what did you manage to pull together?
I had a second-hand dress that I'd bought in a market in Clapham Junction, but it was gorgeous.
I bet you looked amazing. I want you to send me a picture of this.
I will. So I was happy with it, but it was just like I would have liked white.
Yeah, and it's the whole experience, isn't it, of going out and doing the shopping and all that sort of thing.
And I didn't have the engagement ring, which is one thing I really wanted.
Yeah, man, that's essential.
Rough.
But was that, do you think, to sort of, because sometimes I speak to people who weren't married and they feel a little bit like their relationship kind of gets invalidated because what are you? And 100%. In the context of the podcast, whether you married, not married, whatever gender, sex, orientation you are, if you're romantically involved, you're widowed. Yeah. But obviously the outside world doesn't always treat you the same. So do you think that kind of gave you a bit more of an identity, I suppose, during this, because it's next of kin, it's automatic if it's your wife, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it's weird because I never thought it was important to me, but we took a photo of our hands together with our rings, and it was just such a special thing. Like I just felt like, and I had his grandmother's ring, so it was just joyful. I totally, it didn't make me feel any different, but it just made us feel like it was more official, I guess. Like we, all that time we spent together, it was being celebrated, and it wasn't just. I think
the word, and at a time where there's not a huge amount of joy in your life, you managed to find some. So damn right, you grab onto it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's kind of edge towards the crunch time here. You mentioned that you had support from a hospice. So when did it start to look like? I mean, did he die in hospice or at home?
Yeah, unfortunately, because he wanted to die at home. But things got pretty bad and pretty dark with his health. We were having people come in the middle of the night. I was told that he could hemorrhage and bleed out all over the floor. It was terrifying. Every night I was like, oh my God. And he would sit in the toilet. So the thing with his bladder is it wouldn't work like a normal bladder. So it would work like bowels. So it would be like you were going for a poo when you're actually going for a wee. But so he was struggling, and he kept getting infections and things. Even though the cancer wasn't back in the bladder, his body was shutting down. So his bladder was shutting down, or everything was. So he would be up for about 3 or 4 hours. I could hear the extractor fan in the bathroom, and it was terrifying. And we were just terrified. We didn't know what to do. And the hospice was the only option. We were so scared that something terrible would happen to him, and there was nothing we could do. So unfortunately 7 days before he died, he moved into the hospice.
And some of my guests, my husband died suddenly, so I'm not qualified to speak on this, but some of my guests say that even if their partner is reluctant to go to a hospice, once they do, the relationship shifts again, and you stop being a nurse, an oncologist, a carer, and you're able to kind of let the professionals do that, let the professionals take care of them, and you can just love them. And that might not have been your experience, but
I still had that. I'm someone who doesn't want to let go. Like
control freak.
I always feel like people aren't doing it well enough. If they're looking after someone I love, I don't feel like they're doing it well enough.
Or even stacking the dishwasher in my case.
But it was more just I couldn't let go of that sort of like care you know,
Yeah.
he needs more, he's special, he's my Dan.
Yeah.
Even though they were absolutely lovely and wonderful. So it was good because I don't know, I felt safe, like it was a safe space.
Yeah.
And we had to make some pretty big calls actually during that time because he had to go to, so he was having terrible bleeding, and that was when I was telling about the hemorrhaging and stuff, but he was told that he'd have to go to hospital, and we had to make a decision because obviously when you move to the hospital, their job is to keep you alive, and he was facing death. And so what did he want to go through that? Did he want to go to hospital and be resuscitated if things went wrong? So we had to make a big call on that, and that was absolutely terrifying to even, because he hadn't even thought about death. He thought he was going to the hospice for respite care for me. Like that's how we actually framed it. We were like, you'll be out, it's fine, you know, like I just wanted it to be positive for him.
Yeah.
He knew what was going on. He knew very well that his body was shutting down. But yeah, so we had to make that call, and he did go to the hospital, and it was very stressful, and it was, yeah, they were lovely, but then he moved back to the hospice again, and sort of 3 days later he passed.
And were you there already, or did you have to get the phone call?
Oh no, I was there every single, apart from one time again where I feel the guilt, but like it was his mum came to give me a break, so it was just so I could get some sleep because I was sleeping in a chair by his bed. So his mum came, gave me a break, and I went back to his dad's house in Wiltshire, and I'd taken a sleeping tablet, and I woke up to a missed call on my phone at about 4 a.m. And I woke up at 6 and I'd seen this missed call, and it was from the nurse saying, please, could you give us, from the hospice, please, can you give us a call? And I was like, that's it. He's gone. He's gone. And anyway, I got there and he was still with us. And she said that basically he just wanted to, they had to give him extra medication that would make him, make him unconscious. So he wanted to let me know that that was going to happen. He wanted to tell me before that happened so he could, I guess, I don't know.
And all you were doing was having some sleep, but you're going to use that to beat yourself up with, aren't you?
Yeah. So I raced over there, and I went up to him and I said, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
And he put his arm around me.
So he was still there. He was still awake.
He didn't say anything, but he loosely put his arm around me.
Oh, you're going to set me off.
Sorry. I'm a terrible crier.
I think I'd be desensitized, wouldn't you? Although I think the day I get desensitized is the day I need to stop doing these. So,
Exactly.
oh gosh. And that was the last kind of response from him that you had, was it?
Interaction, yeah. And then it was just a matter of sitting and waiting, and it was another night.
And what did you do? Did you play music, talk to him?
Yeah, oh, it's so good. I basically asked all of his friends to send him a little message because I knew he was there. I knew he was listening, and he loved his friends so much. So I got all of his really good friends to send a message on WhatsApp. And I sat there and I played it to him.
How comforting to be able to do that for him.
So nice.
It's different, but when John was in a coma with COVID, I did something similar. I got a dictaphone because we then got messages to him, and he believes that was a turning point because he was in isolation. Yeah. And it's just the comfort of hearing those familiar voices and just your presence being there. Just, I guess, I can picture you sitting holding his hand,
Yeah. And it was beautiful. It was sunny, and it was Christmas. So we had like little Christmas lights outside the hospice window, all in the trees. So I made sure I kept the curtains open, and we just sat there and looked at, well, he didn't look at the lights, but we, it was just lovely to have that peaceful.
And we talk about a good death, and really there isn't a good death when you're his age, but to be able to be comfortable, to be able to hold the hand of the person that loves you most in the world, and to hear messages of people whose lives you've touched.
Yeah.
I mean, there's worse ways, I suppose, if you have to.
Yeah, you make me feel better.
But do take something from that, because that is, insofar as it can be, that is a good death. Yeah. That's. I just wish that it hadn't happened to him, and therefore to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So after he died,
that moment, that kind of that's, even though you've known this is coming, and there's no shame in the fact that, for some people there's a sense of relief because they're not suffering, that because this inevitable horrible thing, once it happens, it's out of your hands, it's happened.
Yeah.
But you've then got to go home without them.
Yeah. And it wasn't home for me because obviously,
at the time you're nomadic at this point, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I was going home to Wiltshire. I was going back to his parents' house because I was in shock. I just needed to sleep. I was so tired. And my mum rebooked. So Dan and I were meant to go back to New Zealand. He'd never met my family, and he was going to go back to New Zealand that year with me at Christmas. So we'd booked our flights and everything. So Mum managed to change everything, and and booked me a flight back in a couple of weeks because we still had his funeral and stuff to arrange. But just to know that I was going and I would be with my family was just helped me.
Yeah, that need, you become almost childlike yourself, don't you? You just want to be wrapped up by, those of us who are lucky enough to still have our parents, to just be held by them.
Protected.
My parents were in I can remember they were in South America, and so they weren't home when it happened. And my mum, I can remember she got a taxi straight from the airport to my house, and like the taxi pulled up, and that moment where I kind of ran into the road, and and to be so far from your family as well. It's not like they're an hour away, the other side of the world.
Yeah.
What did you do for his funeral?
So I call it a celebration, but we weren't religious. He wasn't religious, so we had it in a and I don't even like the fact that it was at a crematorium, but it was beautiful. Like, it was outside of Wiltshire, and it had beautiful grounds, etc. And so we had a service for him where we had played his music. His best friend and his family spoke. I couldn't speak. I was in a mess. My friends came, it was a very beautiful time, I think. And Dan, I feel like he would have been looking over really proud because people couldn't even fit in the room. It was for over 100 people. So it was just,
there's something about that, isn't there? And I always say to people, because sometimes people, I didn't know them that well, should I go to the funeral? Yeah, you should, definitely. Because just, nothing's going to take the pain away, but to look behind you, and Ben's was in a church, also not religious, but I wanted something that had real gravitas.
Yeah.
And looking behind and seeing all these people and thinking they're all here for us. And it's a gift you can give somebody when they're grieving.
Exactly. Yeah. You feel supported.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to talk to you about the sperm. Let's talk about sperm. Because I know, and I've got a little bit of insight from your application, and I know that you've struggled with feelings of guilt because you decided not to use the sperm.
Yes.
So just tell me a little, in as much or as little detail as you like, what prompted him to do it, and so what kind of internal debate you've had?
It was difficult because at the time when he did do it, because I'd assumed he didn't want children, and I kind of had resigned. I'd had a long-term relationship that ended later on. So that was, for me, it was sort of like, it wasn't really on my radar. I love kids, absolutely love them. But I was like, I'm not one of those people who really has to have one and feels lost without having a child. So luckily enough, I wasn't like that. So I was sort of closed to that fact. And when he said he wanted to put his sperm in a sperm bank because of the chemo and everything, I wondered why. I was like, I think he knows that I don't want them, but okay, does that mean he doesn't want to be with me? So there was all those thoughts running around and things. And I brought it up several times with him, and he said it was just because what else? I mean, he may as well do it. You know what I mean?
I was thinking almost a knee-jerk reaction.
And it makes sense.
Something about survival as well,
Exactly. His family knew and things. And his dad, when we found out Dan was dying, his dad asked me if I would have Dan's baby. Directly.
That's a big old ask, isn't it?
It's a big ask, yeah. I couldn't talk about it. I told him this is not the time for me to talk about this. It was a week, we thought we had a week for him to live. So, and then I just said, no, I'm not doing that because this is my life. And also with Dan's disease, it's genetic. I mean, obviously in the future things will change, and but I was just I'd lost someone I was my world, and I just imagined that happening again if I was to have a child that was like Dan, and then I had that all over again. I just couldn't.
Self-preservation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to lock it down and look after your own heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I already had enough. Like, I had all my memories of Dan. Like, I was happy in myself. I had, good friends. Like, for me, it wasn't something that would have made my life any better at that stage.
And I'm also thinking of this hypothetical child, because you said, that you love kids, but it wasn't a burning desire of yours and Dan's to have a family. And I think perhaps if that's the situation, you can, because I've spoken to people who have gone on to have children.
Yeah.
And I think that's different. But if it's not something that you particularly wanted, to then have a child, bring a child into the world that hasn't got a father from the very beginning, to satisfy some sort of legacy need down the paternal line, I think that would be an enormous thing for you to do, but also not fair on either of you.
No.
And I'm sure you'd love the baby, but I think you made a decision to protect your heart and your future there.
That's it. And I didn't have anywhere to live. I was like, this is just the worst time to ever do anything like that. But like his dad, I was very unhappy with me. So that was also very hard.
God, that's so, to cause a rift over it as well. I'm sorry.
No, it is what it is.
And do you know what? I hadn't actually asked you, when did die? What year was it?
So that was 2023, 23rd of November.
So really, you're still fairly fresh in the weeds in this world, huh?
Yep.
What does life look like for you now?
So obviously Dan, when we got married, Dan, I didn't even know he had, this was a thing, but he had life insurance through work. So I'd already saved money from us doing our house sitting and things. So I managed to buy a flat in London, and I call it our home because obviously Dan's input into it, and I've set it up just like he would like it. He loves the sun. It's sunny, it's bright. I've got his photos all around. So it's I feel like it's our space.
I can see it. For anybody that's not got audio, I can see a bit behind you, and it is beautiful. I love the colour of your wall.
Thank you.
And probably a daft question really, but what do you do to sort of keep Dan alive, as it were, or his memory alive? Have you got lots of photos and things like that?
Lots of photos. I write a lot. So I try and keep a sort of diary of thoughts about him. So if I'm on the tube and I remember a memory, because there was one memory where he wouldn't sit on the tube seats because they were so dirty.
I mean, you had a point.
But I just write that down. Like, do you remember the time when he'd stand there and he'd do the fingers to me, like jokingly, but we just had this, we had the best relationship.
I love that idea, actually, that idea of keeping a notebook and or do you do it on your phone, or is it a physical notebook?
In my note, I've got a notebook and also on my phone, but I've got a whole sort of Dan memories, because you can't remember everything. You can't. And
another big responsibility of being a widow is you're the keeper of the memories, because whilst his family will know him up to a point, you will know the version of Dan that you knew, which is different to everybody else's. So that kind of preserving the memory, I really like that. I might steal that idea.
Well, you're welcome to.
Just writing it down. pass that off as my own idea.
Yeah.
Oh, Karla, do you know what? It's been amazing to talk to you. I feel like I've been on a real journey with you today in this hour. I feel like I got a real insight into who Dan was. And I think he sounds like the most amazing one. Actually, no, I'm not going to let you go yet, because hang on, I wrote down some other things before we came on. Where is my notes? Stand-up comic?
I know.
Just
yeah, he was amazing. So he, as well as doing the New York bar, which he sat when he was having chemo, he wanted to be a lawyer, and he was a paralegal. So it was an easy route into law to do the New York bar. I won't explain the detail, but
no, thanks, my brain.
But then also at the same time, he did a coding. So a sort of coding course. It's like really sort of fast track coding course where we met loads of people. He learned to teach yoga.
No, really?
He did a 3-month teachers training yoga. And he also started stand-up comedy.
Was he funny?
So funny.
Really? Can we see him on YouTube?
Never say that.
Can we find him on YouTube? Is there any videos?
I've got it on my Instagram. I don't think he's on YouTube.
What is your Instagram? Let me just write that down. I'll make sure I put it in the show notes.
It's Karla's Insta.
It's Karla.
Yep.
Insta. I'll make sure that I put that correctly spelled into the show notes if anybody wants to go and have a look at Dan doing his comedy, because I know where I'm going after I come out of this interview.
Yeah, he was funny.
Oh, how amazing though. And it's a cliche, but always the good ones, right?
Yep, definitely. But I also think that it's his life was so short, but he managed to, and it's almost like he knew, and he had to
burn bright
as many things as possible.
Yeah, burn bright.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and give yourself a bit of a hug after this, because what you've just done it's not easy, and you've just come on a microphone, talk to a virtual stranger about the most difficult time in your life, and I do kind of make you go back into it a bit.
Thank you, Rosie.
Anybody listening out there, you can message me if you've got any questions. I can pass them on to Karla and give her a follow and find that video of Dan. But for now, Karla, thank you for coming on and bearing your soul with us. It's been a real pleasure to meet you. Stay in touch, won't you?
Thank you, Rosie.
And for everybody out there, keep well, keep your heads up, one foot in front of the other. I'll be back with you soon. Lots of love. Goodbye.